Hey, what's up, everybody? Oh man, we're in the book of James, and this next verse, I don't know, it might make you uncomfortable, it might make you a little upset, but we need verses like this. This is why I've said over and over as we went through these devotionals, I love the book of James. It's practical. James puts the rubber where the road is. He don't play around. Let me just show you what I'm talking about here. We're on verse 19, and he says, "Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath." Swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. Oh, how that hurts. We love to talk. We love to speak. In a lot of ways, it's our defensive mechanism. It's our offensive mechanism. We say before we even think things through. Slow to speak, slow to hear, slow to wrath. Now, that's the context. He's talking about getting angry and just we gossip and we say things that we shouldn't say. And we say things that we regret the next day. And James walks in there and says, "Listen, my beloved brethren." He's not talking to the lost. He's not talking to the sinner. He's talking to brothers. He said, "Beloved brethren." He said, let every man, let every one of you be swift to hear. We need more listening in the church. Need more people that can sit down and tune an ear, give an ear to someone and just listen. You know, I've thought about this a lot in the terms of racism. You know, blacks and whites particularly, because those are the two races that I'm around most. I wish there were more cultures and races in our church. But my life, I have a lot of black people in my life that I love, that I'm the pastor, that I'm the bishop of. I mean, we got thousands and thousands of people in Revival Tabernacle in Malawi, in Mozambique. I'm the bishop of all of those. Those are my family. So we actually have more black people in membership of Revival Tabernacle than we do white people. So those are the two races that I've had the privilege of interacting with most. And one of the things is there's this cultural difference between black people and white people in some instances. And that can get so technical because you have black people in the country and black people in the city, and their cultures are not even the same. You have white people in the city and white people in the country, and their cultures are not the same. So it's a real complex, and there's no cut and dry absolutes when it comes to this. But anybody that has the type of relationship that I do with our black brothers and sisters, you know that there is a difference in some areas when it comes to culture, which I think is incredible. I love it. I think it's beautiful. And so it's why I rejoice so much about, just having the opportunity to have family, church family from different backgrounds. And so, but this is what I want to say. When you start thinking about Black Lives Matter, or when you start thinking about some of the, controversial things that are happening in our streets with our cops, and a lot of white folk are just jumping out there on the scene and, running their mouths and saying whatever they want to. They're swift to speak, but they're not swift to hear. And then I'll look on Facebook, and this is one of those things, and I didn't even mean to get here. But what happens on Facebook is people are just, my white friends and family, what they're saying, their motives are okay, because, Black Lives Matter. There's some people inside that movement that have done some stupid stuff, and there's some racism inside that. But what happens is, now, you got to be careful here. What happens is we get these news articles, these news clippings, just start posting them on Facebook, sharing them on Facebook, and then you got to put your stupid commentary in there, blah, 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 blah. But what they don't realize is that there are many good, powerful, godly black people that are reading these, but they've got a different perspective. They got a different look on this, because there are Black Lives Matter groups that are not tearing up cities. They're praying. They got white cops in there that are, and of course, Black Lives Matter, that issue's kind of dwindled down a little bit, and there'll be another one pretty soon, because this country, our government's, people are involved in a lot of things. They're trying to stir up. They want division. But I've asked people a lot of times, before you start talking and saying this blanket statement, you got to remember there's other people that are watching and listening. There's black people that don't agree with Black Lives Matter, but they are upset about the racism in this country, and they have every right to be. And so what I've noticed is you have this, our white people and black people, they have strong opinions, and both of them are right. There is racism in America, and there are sections of Black Lives Matter that are, shouting death to the pigs, fry them up when you want them. Now, I can't remember how the statements are going, but it's just really repulsive. Absolutely. There's racism in the white side and racism on the black side and all of this. And I've noticed, and I've been asking the question, I said, well, have you sat down with a black man or a white woman and asked them how it feels to be them? Because we're not swift to hear. We don't really want to talk to people. Not dialogue. We want monologue. We want to just talk like I'm doing right now. There's no way that you can speak to me right now. Maybe you can make a comment or something, but right now there's no way. This is monologue. It's one person speaking. You can't have a healthy life like that. And that's what James is dealing with. You got to listen. Get yourself in other people's shoes. If you're angry about what's happening in the country, if you're angry about what's happening in your life. Now, this gets more practical than even just, across the country, the racism on blacks and whites, racism, Hispanics and xenophobia and all these different terms we throw out there. It would probably do a lot of good for a lot of the white people that I know to sit down with a Hispanic man or woman, even someone here illegally, and say, tell me how it feels. Why are you here? I mean, why, and get some questions answered in a respectful way. It would be a great thing for men, husbands, to sit down with their wife and just get their perspective. And so I can carry this on and on and on, but we don't do that. We want to talk. We want to say, swift to hear, slow to speak. We want to speak before we hear, slow to wrath. These are all really pertinent truths. Slow to speak, swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. If we could do this, it would change our world. If people would stop now listen, I believe scripturally speaking, we are told to judge. I can show you in 1 Corinthians 2:15 real quick, which will shut down a lot of stuff. The problem is being judgmental. When you look down your nose at people, you treat them like trash because you think you're better than them and you're superior knowledge, superior spiritually. But in 1 Corinthians 2:15, it says, but he that is spiritual judges all things, yet himself is judge of no man. Jesus made reference to judging as a righteous judgment. So yeah, okay. But being judgmental. We already know what we act like we know people and haven't even talked to them. We act like we know what they're doing, where they're at. We haven't even had a discussion with them because we didn't take the time. We didn't care enough to sit down and talk to them. We got to learn to listen more. Listen and don't speak so quick. You might learn something. You may learn something. And when you're angry, no matter what it is about, be slow to wrath. Now, wrath is basically the reaction from anger. You can be angry and sin not. That sin not part is to not wrath. Be angry, but do not wrath. Wrath is typically, a reaction or some type of, throwing knuckles, throwing verbal word knuckles, throwing, words at people, hurting people, yelling at people, cussing people, using manipulative words. And I know people that are in the churchy people, they don't cuss, but they manipulate people. They talk about people, gossip and things like that. They get mad and they just got to tell everybody what somebody did to me. I'll tell you what, I don't got any confidence in them at all. Sometimes even in situations like that, when you hear somebody has talked about you, said something about you, it might do you good to try to engage them in a conversation without wrath, without anger. Just say, hey, I'm trying to figure out why you said some of these things. And they might say, I didn't say that. They might say, I didn't even say that. Or they might say, well, I did say that, but that wasn't the context. There's no telling what you could learn. And I see this in parents a lot. They just jump down the throats, get on the skin of them little ones. Their child does something or says something and they just go bonkers. Well, it might do you some good to ask them why they did that. What were you thinking? Without screaming, without yelling, without doing that. We've got to start listening more, swift to hear, listening everywhere, listening to the people that's around you. Husbands, listen to your wives, man. They need an ear. I mean, when you don't communicate in a marriage, in a family, that family is going to be in trouble. Got to communicate, guys. Sisters, communicate. It would do you some good to say, all right, I'm going to sit down and shut up. Honey, tell me what it's like to be a man. Tell me what it's like to be a husband. I want to understand. So we got to start listening more, speaking less, slow to wrath. We do that, life's going to be better for us. All right. There we go. Hope that helped you. May God bless you. I'll see you at the next verse.